Order. The Town of Hilton Head Island Finance and Administrative Committee meeting of April 19th, 2020. Krista, are we in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, sir, we are.
Thank you. Would you call the roll?
Certainly, sir. Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Harkins?
Here.
Mr. Stanford?
Here.
Mr. Lennox?
Here.
All present, sir.
Thank you. We have minutes from the regular meeting of March 15th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Krista, do we have appearance by citizens?
Yes, sir, we do. Today, Mr. Skip Hoagland is scheduled to speak to council, or the committee. Mr. Hoagland?
Skip Hoagland, Windmill Harbor. Mr. Lennox, why do you all keep saying the Chamber and Bill Miles does a great job promoting tourism with millions of tax funds when this is a lie and fraud and zero accounting and you're in FOIA violation? First, a private chamber local business league is not supposed to do a good job, not supposed to be hired DMO to promote tourism. This is an ad agency, a local media job. A local chamber under national gold standards is only supposed to support local business members like electricians, plumbers, beauty salons, etc., not be in business whatsoever as a 501(c)(6) nonprofit chamber. It has zero to do with tourism. Secondly, a hired DMO under national gold standards under South Carolina ATAX laws is only supposed to use ATAX funds to promote and market tourism and nothing else. ATAX committee recommending funding is in violation of ATAX laws and illegal use of nonprofit chamber, Low Country Golf Owners Association, even the Boys and Girls Club. They cannot be ATAX funded. Chamber hijacked ownership of our DMO ATAX funded app and website, and it must end. Taxpayers own this. Bill Miles selling advertising to generate his $500,000, $600,000 salary pay package is insanity. It must end. Town violation of procurement bids allowing Bill Miles to rob our community for 35 years as a DMO must end. We must hire a new DMO. $1 million plus ongoing to Canada to develop the app and the website must end. The town illegally using tax money to become chamber members must end. You're a member, you're a chamber member, you use tax monies, Mr. Lennox. It's quid pro quo. The town violation of South Carolina Nonprofit Corporation Act law must end. The town chamber violation of South Carolina constitutional laws must end. Bill Miles' violation of the IRS 501(c)(6) nonprofit tax codes and UBIT and tax evasion must end. Bill Miles' violation of unfair trade, business, and competitive practices to local media, even the Island Packet, must end. Bill Miles' bribery, corrupted tax returns, money laundering with Ray Deal, fraudulent audits must end. Harkins, McCann, Lennox committed criminal fraud by claiming they saw chamber accounting at the chamber offices. You're a fraud and a liar, Mr. Lennox. A DMO is an old, failed business model, and no matter who operates it, tourism is generated by technology for free. Local search, social media, 1,000 Facebook accounts, local residents, word of mouth, family guests, 70% repeats, and independent marketing efforts of local businesses, not this DMO chamber tax scam. They don't create tourism. It's a fraud. The fraudulent chamber is run as a for-profit criminal enterprise disguised as a nonprofit chamber to trick our community and even IRS by committing this tax evasion. Our community is being robbed blind by this ATAX committee, this council, and allowing this chamber tax scam to continue. This happy horse manure and theft by Bill Miles must end. Alex, I hope you can do something. I'm afraid that you're probably not going to be able to, but somebody's got to do something.
Krista, any other citizen comments?
No, sir, that concludes appearance by citizens.
Thank you. Under new business, we have a report from the Hilton Head Island-Bluffton Chamber of Commerce in their role as DMO for the town on industry metrics for the year 2021. After this report, we are to make a recommendation to Town Council as to the acceptability of the performance versus the metrics. Ariana, I think it's yours.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning. Morning.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, and then this is your pointer. Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Ariana Pernice. I'm with the Hilton Head Island-Bluffton Chamber of Commerce, representing the organization today and explaining the DMO metrics report for 2021. Sorry, I'm looking at my papers. So each of you have received this document, and I hope you had the chance to go through it. I'm here to walk through kind of a high level and answer any questions for you. And I'll get the pointer and see if I can do this. It's the first test. Here we go. So as a recap, we have our 13 metrics in front of us, and those are in our contract. But let's dive a little deeper into what each one of those requirements asked of us. And first, we want to start with the resident satisfaction survey. That survey was in market from June 14th to June 25th of 21. There were nearly 3,000 respondents. But I think most importantly, what we want to talk about is the opportunity to really engage and understand the community and their relationship with tourism. This is our opportunity to dive deeper, to build a lasting and thriving relationship with our community regarding tourism, and this was our first touch base with that, so we'll have a strong foundation. Importantly, what were those 4 pieces that we're going to use to kind of drive that opportunity going forward? And so while we look quickly at those 4, there's the deeper presentation within your document. So we'll start here with the fact that though they know and are knowledgeable about tourism and its benefits, there's an opportunity to educate and further engage the community with all the benefits that surround tourism that we as community members have the opportunity to experience every single day. And then while we will work hard and understand the resident opportunity for education, we also want to acknowledge that there are kind of wavering understandings of, I guess, enthusiasm, right, regarding tourism. It probably fluctuates with time of year. And we also have the feedback that the residents feel pride of Hilton Head Island. So I love that sense of pride. The We Call It Home campaign that we have out there now really resonates with that. And they offer high quality experiences, dining and shopping. We as residents get to experience it every single day based on the fact that our number one economy is tourism. And without that, would we have those opportunities every single day to shop and eat at some of the highest quality restaurants and retail shops? And we know that the residents we consider Hilton Head Island's local economy so important, but we want to make sure that we communicate how it ebbs and flows. And as we prepare for residents to come in for that summer time frame, how do we do that to the best of our ability? So with all of this information, what do we do? Right, and that's why in the master plan that you've seen in our marketing GMO annual plan, you'll see that there's a heavy emphasis on community first. There's a heavy emphasis on our community campaign, what all bubbles into our cornerstone. And so that cornerstone piece for us is our leading effort when it comes to marketing the destination. We're engaging both the community, leading with community stories, the heartbeat of the community, and ensuring that they're educated and have in their hip pocket the understanding of the power of tourism. And so we're excited to have that foundational piece in place. It's being led by the Cornerstone campaign, and we'll continue forward on an annual basis with that. To be followed by the visitor survey that we do on an annual basis. And that, again, is in market for the entire year. We survey on a rolling basis every single month, and based on people's trip preferences on when they're going to visit, we'll follow up with an email survey about 2 weeks prior to when they stated they were going to visit. So as a rolling scale, what did we hear from them for the past year? We had roughly 2,000, just over 2,000 visitor respondents. And we kind of broke it into 4 categories for you. And again, this isn't a deeper piece within your booklet, but why are they choosing Hilton Head Island? And again, this is kind of that interesting time frame, right? Because we went from 2019, which was kind of our normal experiences and people understanding the destination as they always have. Then we hit 2020, and then 2021 was coming out, and what does tourism look like, and how did people digest and interact and engage with our destination, and how was our community engaging with visitors? So this, again, is some feedback based on kind of those last, few years of experience, but what was resonating for 21. So they chose Hilton Head Island, the visitors, because they'd been here before, because we're a beach, we're an island, we're a beach destination, which is wonderful. Word of mouth recommendation, we're within driving distance, we were safe, right? So that Path Forward campaign, everything we did as a community to ensure that not only our community, our businesses, our workforce were safe, but our visitors felt safe and they felt comfortable coming here. So that's a huge opportunity for us, and one that really paid forward for us as we kind of led the charge for recovery and tourism as a nation, for the nation. And out of that, all that were surveyed, 89, almost 90% plan to return. And we've always had that really strong call to come back to this destination. People love Hilton Head Island, and they feel part of this community. It's part of their DNA and a family memory that they've made and continue to make. So their behaviors, they are looking for natural beauty, ease of access, quality of lodging and dining, affordability, diversity in lodging and dining, and making sure they have ease of getting around the island. But where are they looking when they're looking to lay their head? That leading the charge is that VRBO platform, the local vacation rental management companies, and then the local resorts online booking platforms such as the Sea Pines Resort, Palmetto Dunes. They really like that opportunity to see what their options are, and they dive right into finding those home and villa opportunities. And who's looking? The 3.8 average group size. They do use their car, as we know, as we were built on this opportunity where it was a drive to the destination opportunity, which is great. So car still remains a top form of transportation. When they're staying in a home and villa, it's on average 7.9 nights. In a hotel, 5.5. And then the home and villa continues to be the most popular choice. And we knew that just based on our portfolio, right? So really good foundational pieces as we chart forward together in this tourism effort. Hilton Head Island lodging performance, as you see here, it was all arrows up in terms of year-over-year performance. We look at that two-source report, which is that left column or your right column if you're looking from the dais. So we're up in revenue per available room, 44.9%. Our occupancy was up 26.9%, and we had our average daily rate up 14.2%. And when we're looking at that, I choose that two-source report as kind of the piece, the column that we're going to look at, because it's the combined home and villa and the hotel report together.
Can I ask a question on the slide,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I was curious about the ADR number. For 2021, it's 317, up 8%. And
You're in 2020.
yeah, 2020, it was 335. So I just need a little help with the formula as to how we get up in that situation if the actual number is different.
So I'm sorry, we're going
Lower.
at 20. Can you repeat the numbers, the years you're looking at? Sorry, I'm jumping in
Yeah,
my
the
book.
2020 number was $335
On home and villa.
under the ADR, and we're showing 317 as the 2021 number.
Right. So this is an interesting question,
Okay.
and I appreciate the opportunity to explain that. So as we go forward through our opportunity of reporting, all numbers are accurate. However, the organization, it was Intopia Destametrics that for the last 5 years that we reported on, did all of our reporting for us, that third party. And when we reported at the time of reporting, it was accurate. And then they right-sided those numbers or adjusted them based on closing out their their numbers for the year, and they adjusted it to make it the up. So there was a slight adjustment in those numbers, so the percentage up and down will change. But the number that is showing up on 21 as up 8% was adjusted slightly based on some adjustments that Destometrics and Topia did on their side. So we will provide those new numbers for you, but at the time of reporting, those were accurate.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So visitor spending studies, economic impact. With all of our visitors here on the destination, what was the impact that they brought for all of all of Beaufort County, excuse me? And that was an economic impact of $2.8 billion in terms of Hilton Head Island tourism in 2021. As you can see, that number is substantially higher than years prior. But when we look into the reporting for 2019, 2018, those were with no significant events that had happened in terms of whether that be a weather event or some other initiative that would have brought in additional funding. And so when we had the COVID-19 pandemic, that was a global pandemic, we did receive additional funding for that. And with that funding, we resulted in more marketing, more people are here, and so the higher impact. So we wanted to make sure we noted that. So if we break that down, for every dollar that's invested, the return from the visitor coming in, and that impact was for every dollar that we as a community, as the DMO, invested into marketing was $1. The output of that would be $38.01 as the return. So the receipts, as we would like to talk about. In this, in partnership with the town, we wanted to report on 5 years, which you have seen this report for the last few years in terms of the 5-year and the foundation year that you see there is your base year of 16. This just shows the collections across all opportunities. So beach preservation, hospitality, local accommodation, and state accommodation tax. So for this prior year, we were up 60% in accommodation and hospitality tax combined. So number of visitors, 3.13 million number of visitors on Hilton Head Island. We've been averaging around 2.6 for the past few years. This past year for 21 was 3.13 million. And we like to just put who was it that we were targeting, that we went after, and who we received. So she skews a bit female. She's an affluent traveler, their undergraduate degree or higher, 2 to 4 trips per year, and 7 nights on average length of stay. So we use our HiltonHeadIsland.org website as our virtual front door, and our opportunity is to create handshakes to our local businesses. And when you look at our website visits, we had over 3.4 million to the website in 21, converting, or handshakes created over 1.7 million out to our partner businesses. The other piece that we're very proud of and that we work very closely with our community on is the mail fulfillment. And there's the book that to your my left, your right, which is the official Hilton Head Island vacation planner. And we had over 68,000 fulfilled throughout, and that comes through those that walk in, those that request it via email to be mailed to them. It's at all of our South Carolina welcome centers, to AAA offices. It's taken to every conference that we go to or trade show. It's sent to our media points of contact. We like to keep this book top of mind. It's also in our hotel rooms when people are resting. They can see the beautiful book there, and that's complemented also by the golf guide. People are taking notice, and we like to bring this again to your attention because it's not us saying that we're number one. It is the readerships and the community and the out market saying that we're number one. This is just a small handful of the accolades that were awarded to the destination. Again, Travel and Leisure, Condé Nast Traveler, comments from MSN as 25 most popular beaches in America, America's beautiful seaside towns, and again, coming in as from Forbes, South Carolina's hottest up-and-coming food and drink destination. So again, putting some a different take on accolades there, and I love to see that. But what does tourism do for this economy? We often say it's our number one economy, but how are we seeing that in numbers? And so when you put that in terms of numbers and jobs, it generated from Hilton Head Island Tourism for Beaufort County, 36,919 jobs. It's 34% of jobs within Beaufort County. And when we talk about that, we are thinking frontline members of tourism, right? So it's the person at the hotel or at the restaurant, but it also could be the person driving in the linens from another state or another county. It could be someone secondary or, third in line in terms of how it touches tourism. It isn't always just the frontline person touching tourism. We have to think about it comprehensively in that when there is a request from the front line that needs a touch point that is 6 deep, that accounts for being tied to tourism. We are participating and we are connecting with our community, and we've done that in 2021 with 70 plus in-person and combined virtual chamber events, and we did over 50 ribbon cuttings and groundbreaking ceremonies, which is exciting, right? We're bringing that opportunity forward. We're talking about all the new businesses and the commerce happening here locally, which is exciting to be able to celebrate those with the businesses and the community. Charlie Clark and her team are working hard to ensure that our destination is front and center when we're talking about places to travel to. Her team does a wonderful job with over, in 21, 2,316 stories and mentions. And that was it. And the deeper dive is obviously in front of you. If you have any questions, I'm here and to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you,
Yes,
Ari.
sir.
Questions, comments from the committee? Bill?
Ariana, first, thanks for that great report.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the
Appreciate it.
opportunity.
If you look at the average total expenditure an individual or a family spends here, are we able to track where they spend it? I know obviously a hotel or a lodging would be big, food would be big, but if I'm running a little boutique out there, are we able to create a tracking?
I will work with our College of Charleston point of contact for these opportunities to make sure we can break further down past a category, and I'll see how refined we can get with the opportunity. I'll make that note and ask that question.
Because it just could be some kind of a litmus test to start to see changing taste, changing trends. The other, if I might, the other comment is, when you started your presentation, you spent, I think, inappropriately so, time on sharing what the reaction of the community is to this tourism engine. I may have missed it, but I didn't hear anything from an educational standpoint that we could share with the community in terms of what positive impact this industry does have on their taxes.
That's a great question. There is a considerable amount of work being done based on that Cornerstone campaign that we talk about in our marketing plan. And we absolutely have those pieces in place regarding education, the benefits of tourism. And we're happy to share some of that detail with you as we get a little closer. But there are strong benefits of having our number one economy being tourism. So we'll make sure that we get that detail back to you. But there has been a considerable amount of effort beyond, efforts of, we call it home campaign. We are meeting regularly with different groups around the community to ensure that they are informed of those details, that, such as the benefits of tourism, but also just how the funding is generated and how it flows. So we'll continue to get that information out to you, just so it's also with you.
And just one last question. Are we tracking the average income of the person or family that comes here so we can do trending?
Yes, sir.
We are doing that?
We are, yes.
And how is it trending?
We are targeting that $150,000 household income, and we are right on par, and we're doing that with our surveying. And it's a part of the question within the surveys that we ask in the visitor profile study. there. So that is, we are hitting on target.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ariana, for a nice report.
Thank you.
The last several years, we've been focusing on trying to bring in the higher-end traveler, the $150,000 or greater family income.
Yes, sir.
If I'm reading the statistics that I've seen in these reports correctly, about 25% of the travelers that come here fall into that category. I'm wondering what we have done differently in the past year from in the past to try to draw that type of family visitor here to the island.
That's a great question, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to explain it. So our opportunity has always been to focus on that $150,000 household income, and then we do that through our refined messaging and ensuring that we're touching on different assets that they might enjoy, starting with accommodations first and foremost, and then going over to excursions or experiences, and there's a wide range of those. As we develop new technology and we have opportunities to utilize that technology, it allows us to be extremely laser focused in our effort to reach that target audience, and we see them converting, right? So it's not only just bringing them in through the website and turning them into a handshake for our businesses, but we're also continuing that conversation with them through several different touch points, whether we're engaging them with email or social media, or an on-island experience, that they are getting that consistency there. So technology allows us the opportunity to continue the conversation and first and foremost refine, and so we ensure that we're getting into that target audience that is most desired.
It seems to me that people that fit into that category have particular interests in life generally. Mm-hmm. They subscribe to certain magazines, which may not be the subscriptions for people with less income. Mm-hmm. So what I'm getting at here is there an effort to try to reach those particular sources? Also occurs to me the universities, the major universities, and their alumni relations. What are we doing in terms of reaching out to those sources?
Absolutely. Another great question. So in terms of the media that we're placing, we have the digital opportunity, which again is laser focused into literally the household that we desire. We can get into that, granularity of precision. Secondly, it is having a strong mix of media platforms, whether that be a departures, high-end American Express card holder, or we are targeting messaging within a broader reach of media, whether that be travel and leisure or garden and gun. So you need to, we target readership based on content, but we also target media based on their consumer, correct? So we have those opportunities laid out in front of us, and we work with those partners to ensure that we're getting to those. We also work with our partners locally on their events to ensure, whether it be an alumni association or a different facet of integration of, maybe it is a sorority or fraternity or some outreach in that regard, that we're working to ensure that we have those touch points. And that is where we're working internally to refine those and have those contacts. And so we're constantly working on those opportunities. When we had a recent Darius Rucker intercollegiate event here, we worked very closely with that partner to ensure that we had those outreach opportunities to alumni partners. In addition, we've worked on our meetings and group side to invite and encourage those sororities and fraternities or reunion opportunities to come into the destination to choose us for their spot for getting back together.
I would like to see continued reporting on that.
Okay. And that's constantly growing and working for us.
In the residents survey, I noticed one of the continuing themes was overcrowding and traffic congestion. This makes the 278 Carter project even more important to us, I think. But I'm interested in, what are you hearing from our visitors about, is there a perception of overcrowding? Is there a perception of traffic congestion that is turning people away?
Not in our current efforts, but we'll continue to monitor that and ask those questions and bring those forward and work with them real time on them as we see them.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the presentation thus far. Are you going to touch at all on the, at least in our package, it says a draft destination marketing plan? Are you going to touch on that today at all, or?
No.
The marketing plan, no, sir.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like, but I am not.
Well, some of my questions as far as the reporting, I think tie back to the new plan, so.
Okay.
All right, and most of these may not necessarily be questions. I just want to
Sure, I
to
can make
some,
note, and I am
make some
presenting
comments.
today at 3.
If you've got answers, that's fine.
Okay.
You know, I want to first say that I'm very happy that we are within a contract with the chamber, okay? And most folks, when you talk about partnerships, they'll say contract and cash. Well, I'll add another C to that, and that'd be conversation. So I'm kind of viewing today as a workshop, okay? So bear with me, Mr. Chair. And I applaud prior councils to getting us to a point where we do have a contract in place. I think that's so important in order for us to have some metrics that we can dialogue about. And I'd only ask staff that moving forward, I know we mentioned the contract in the cover memo, but a copy of the contract, I think it's important, okay, particularly because of the terms. And we'll start to see new members of council coming on, okay? I know that some may be more knowledgeable than others as far as the contract and where we stand. I guess one of the reasons I asked about the ADR, which is a good metric, Councilman Stanford kind of touched on this a little bit. You know, so much of what we're trying to accomplish here, we need help from our partners, okay? And when you start to talk about congestion and, you know, what that really means, not just to the residents, but also the visitors, helps us make decisions, and we're gonna need your help in terms of if we need to shift or not. So that ADR, when you talk about home and villa, the increase, and then I look at the increase of the total number of visitors, and tie that back to the conversation we're having about short-term rentals here on Hilton at the moment, I'm not quite sure that we've got the ship steered in the right direction there, okay? Particularly when we want to always increase those numbers from a dollar perspective, absolutely. But I'm not quite sure that it's just a capacity that we're chasing, okay? Instead of more and more visitors, maybe it'd be more and more, as Mr. Stanford has pointed out, the quality of the visit in terms of what they're going to spend when they're here. And also, I'd also like to throw into that is, Hilton is more than just beach and golf and a place to visit, right? It's a place to live also. And I think that there's a huge component of our economic base, our tax base, that comes from those of us that live here, those of us that choose to come and live here. And I think you all are the voice as far as that's concerned. It's not pretty shiny for someone to pick up our comprehensive plan or strategic plan, okay? But when they look at stuff that you all have put out, I think it's a little bit more attractive, okay? So giving off the sense of, you know, being a place to live, work, and play, I think is definitely important. The $2.8 billion economic impact, again, to that, you know, I'm really curious in the metric of how we say that that's improving our quality of life here on Hilton Head, okay? And I'm not sure I can pull that out of this report at the moment, but in the future, I think that's important that we have that. Councilman Harkin asked the question about how this trickles down. I think that's important also. And part of our attraction here on Hilton Head is our arts and cultural community, right? And I'm just curious as to how those businesses are really flourishing because of our enhancement of that particular area. On page 19, it talks about the 34% of the jobs in Beaufort County. And I think it also picks up somewhere in your draft marketing plan that we have this public relations efforts that we're going through. The quality of service here on Hilton Head is so important, okay? I'll be a little bit biased here because I just got back from Jamaica, and when you compare how you're treated on Hilton Head versus how you treated in Jamaica, there's no comparison, okay? Hilton Head is top of line, and I think we need to stay that way. But I think we have an opportunity for our local grown talent. A lot of folks have decided to stay on Hilton Head and make careers on Hilton Head based on the brand of Hilton Head, okay? If it's a real estate agent, if it's managing a restaurant, whatever it is, okay? But as a young adult, they made the decision to stay here. I'm just wanted to make sure that we strengthen that connection over time through your public relations strategies. I think that's very important. I had in my notes here to ask you about our resolution to stand up a historical development corporation, but I'm not looking for you to answer that. I'm just saying that out loud in the room so Mr. Miles and I can have that chat later on, okay? And the last one, I would just say to our partners is, I think the metrics that we're putting before us at the moment are great, but as I go through that draft of a marketing plan, I think I'm interested in letting the community know how those strategies are tying back to the Hilton Head's Our Plan strategies, okay? It talks about branding in there. I want to make sure that we're going in the same direction. How we tie the two together, I think, is ultimately very important to us. And whatever metrics we can put behind the strategies, particularly those that are in page 49 of that marketing plan, and how we report back on those in this annual report, I think is very important. It helps us, it helps you all. And again, I'm glad that we're in a long-term relationship here. Just want to make sure that we continue to improve it, is my takeaway on today's discussion. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good. Eric, good report. I think I'd like to make two comments, and both comments pertain to the evolution of the relationship between the island visitor and the island resident, and the role that you, in your role as DMO and Chamber of Commerce, have in that evolution. Almost 2 years ago, the Chamber brought into one of their teleconferences or power hours, Peter Greenberg, a well-known expert in the field of tourism and visitor relationships, and he said it's about process, not product. And I think your comment, Ari, was a good one. People obviously felt safe coming to Hilton Head Island, and those numbers support it. And I think the communication that the Chamber had through the teletown halls and the power hours and others similar to that was very, very effective in delivering the message to the community, both resident and non-resident, how important the process and how important public safety is on Hilton Head Island. And I think your numbers support that. So my first comment is your leadership role during the pandemic stands tall, and the numbers support it. Second comment is that the resident survey that you did for the first time was much more effective than I ever anticipated. The number of responses that you got was off the chart and gives us all a very good database from which we can work. And the 4 insights that came out of that survey are extremely critical. And I think as you led with your presentation with those 4 insights, I think we've got to keep those front of mind. And you very effectively tied your DMO cornerstone plan to 3 of those 4. And I think that's also appropriate, and that represents really a change from the relationship that we had as a town and vendor 5 years ago. We didn't have that. We do now, and I like it. I think it's going to continue to be effective, and I think those are really good priorities.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions or comment from the public? Come up, please.
I also have comments on the town accounting, your tax stuff, and I'll speak on that later. Most of you my age have no clue what's going on. You don't know anything about DMO laws, technology, and how we're all being scammed by this chamber. You just don't have a clue. What you do understand is your failure to demand the following in full transparency. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, especially a banker. I'm glad I didn't bank with you, I can tell you that. You know, you understand full accounting, full ATAX accounting from Bill Miles requires invoices and matching receipts. He needs to show us where he's doing with all this ATAX money, all this millions that you people just keep on handing him with no oversight, no nothing. You just hand him the money, and you just sit here and justify it. How has over 1 million in ATAX funds being used in Canada and still going to Canada? And you people just allow that to happen. Just allow this money to leave our country. Not even supporting local businesses. I mean, it's just, you just completely ignore it. And how do you allow this chamber to claim they own this app and this website versus the town? The town taxpayer owns this website. How much advertising is being sold on this website that's being developed in Canada by these crooks? Ray Deal and Bill Miles. It doesn't get any more crooked than these guys. How do you do this? How do you?
Address the committee, please.
No, I'm going to address who I,
Address
no,
the
I'm going to address
committee.
who I want to address. I'm going to address who I want. There's no rule that says I can't talk to the public. This is
are
not,
to address
Mr. Lennox,
the
this is not your house. This is our house. This is the taxpayer's house. You work for all taxpayers. So please, just give me respect and just sit there and listen to what I have to say. No, I'm not going to listen to your rules.
Address the
No, I'm going to address who I want. Okay? Now, you want to sit here and debate this, or are you going to let me finish? You don't think the police is going to remove me by police force, do you? You don't think he's going to actually do that? He's not that stupid.
Is this the way you want to use your time?
No, this is the way I'm going to speak, and I'm going to speak the truth, and I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Because your corruption, your lies, and your fraud is over. It's over. How much advertising is being sold on the app and the website by these two criminals? How much? Where is it? Have you seen that money? Let me tell you something. The IRS has already stated that Bill Miles, Ray Deal, who is laundering this money and commingling this money with the private profits and the tax monies, we already know that. How do you think Bill Miles makes $500,000? We don't know what he's making. We don't know how much he's stealing. We know on the IRS Form 990, it shows him making $350,000 a year. My God, the governor of South Carolina only makes $104,000. We don't know how much these guys are stealing because we haven't seen the invoices and the receipts and the accounting. The rest of this stuff that y'all are talking about and this fraudulent presentation by Ariana Pernice is just ridiculous. It's just nothing but smoke and mirrors to steal money. And y'all have to understand that. I think Alex understands that. Quite frankly, the only one out of all of you, I think Alex understands this. So the fact is, this DMO, nonprofit 501(c)(6) chamber is in violation of IRS 501(c)(6) nonprofit tax codes. And they're violating UBIT. UBIT stands for Unrelated Business Income Tax. When you sell millions of dollars on a website and pocket that money to pay $500,000 pay packages, salaries, world travel, entertainment, it goes on and on and on. You have to pay tax on that money. And you shouldn't be in that business. A nonprofit, the tax codes are very specific. A nonprofit should not be in any business that's normally carried on by a for-profit company. And there's a reason for that. because for-profit companies, the Island Packet, other medias, pay taxes. They're tax-paying companies. He's not paying any taxes, and he's in violation. I imagine that Ray Deal and Bill Miles once investigated, and this council, that many of you are going to be arrested. The handcuffs are coming. I can assure you that. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? If there is none, I'll bring it back to the dais. We are required to review the metrics, which we have done individually and collectively, and pass on whether the performance for 2021 is acceptable, as we have done in the past. I would entertain a motion pertaining to the 2021 metrics.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the committee accept the metrics report as presented by the Chamber of Commerce as our DMO.
As acceptable?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Krista, please call the roll.
Certainly, sir. Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you, Ariana and Bill and Ray. Item 7B, consideration of a resolution authorizing the implementation of a home safety and repair program, including the execution of a memo of understanding with the Low Country Council of Governments to handle income certification. Mr. Sean Coleman, welcome.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My pleasure to be in front of you this morning. In just a moment, I'm going to present to you a home safety and repair program. But I want to remind the committee, the crowd here and those watching, that this is the implementation of previous action that the committee recommended to council and council authorized. We received some ARPA money as related to the pandemic, and we've happily used Category 1 to address negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency in a distribution to community foundation. They presented to you their first round of grant awards, and I think they're on your agenda for next month to present. I think they will have distributed all but $35 of the $500,000 program for this year, and a reminder that council authorized another $500,000 in fiscal '23. In Category 2, replace lost sector revenue and target funds. One program that was targeted for execution was $400,000 to a home repair, structural safety, removal of unsafe and uninhabited structures program with $200,000 program for fiscal '22, and another $200,000 program for fiscal '23. That information was in your memo in your packet, but I wanted to cover that. What I'm going to walk through today is the home safety and repair program, the partnership that we are recommending through an MOU with Low Country Council of Governments for income certification. But here's what I'm going to cover. The recommendation that we'll ask of you to council. We'll cover the program policy statement. The elements covered are outlined in this program. The limitations as well as qualifications, the income certification I mentioned, a list of the required applicant forms and documents, and we try to include all of them in your packet. There are many attachments in the packet that went out for this meeting. We'll cover program execution, how it works, a communication strategy, and then next steps. It's an awful lot of words here. In essence, what we're asking the Finance Administrative Committee to do is recommend that Town Council authorize through resolution the execution of this program. including the MOU with the Low Country Council of Governments to do the income certification, which is required to meet eligibility for the program elements. The policy statement, and again, this, we've created a program policy document, and so it has, I'm going to walk through basically the elements, and again, that was in your packet. The policy statement is to have home safety and repair program assist low-income households with property repairs and improvements to increase their quality of life, the quality of the housing stock, create a safer, more vibrant community, and retain character and options for affordable housing. And we heard this an awful lot in our work with affordable housing, the Housing Strategic Plan, about the importance to protect existing housing stock, just as important as building a lot of new, right? It's like retaining employees versus recruiting new. Let's retain the good ones that we have. So the program elements outlined as part of this this initiative are, they cover three main components. One is home repair. Repairs inside and outside of homes. Could be roof repairs, it could be repairs to the floor, it could be broken windows. But any repair that's needed to keep the home safe and dry and to improve habitation. The second element is abatement or demolition of uninhabited, unsafe structures. And we have a few of those on the island. And it provides a mechanism for property owners to be able to remove those sort of unsightly and unsafe structures and a funding mechanism that allows them to do so. And then the third element is to allow for trimming of trees that pose a hazard to a residence or to a structure. So it can't be a tree kind of on the other side of the lot, and someone wants some limbs taken down. But if they pose a hazard to the structure that could create problems later with roof damage or structural damage, that would be an eligible application of the program. And then one final thing, it's not necessarily a program element, but we will waive all application and permit fees related to this program going forward. The target for area median income is 60%. The program isn't one of convenience, it's one of need. And so we're targeting lower income owners to allow them the access to the program. And so 60% is the target AMI for the program. There are also limits on the amount of an award per applicant per year. It's limited to $15,000 total per applicant per year. You could have a $5,000 roof repair. You could have a $2,000 tree trimming. And then, the balance for if you had an abandoned structure also on the property. You could apply for all three, but you'd be capped at $15,000. The town manager does have discretion if there's an emergent need that would require exceeding this limit. And so staff would present that to the town manager for consideration. And he has the authority to override the limit, so to speak. Income certification, we've used LOCOG in the past. Other communities have done this as well. We had talked about income certifications through LOCOG as part of our, in discussions related to workforce housing. So the application comes in directly through LOCOG. They provide a certification on whether or not that applicant meets the eligibility requirements at the 60% AMI level. They provide that certification back to the town, and then we can execute through the process. They can move on to the next stage. We've given you some examples of options that an applicant has to provide their income to LOCOG. I don't want to read them, but there's some options there that, and these are standard. Again, some other communities use LOCOG for the same purpose. Required forms and documentations. We'll try to make this as easy as possible, but we do have an application. It was included in your packet. You need an adequate proof of an ownership interest in the property. income documentation through LOCOG. And then we'll need a right of entry, which allows us to go on the property, one, to assess and certify that the repair is needed, and then two, coordinate with contractors to execute the work. And it'll be inspected and finalized before payment is issued. Program execution, I'll try to walk you through kind of the basic steps, but an application is submitted to the town. The income certification paperwork is submitted to Low Country Council of Governments. If they meet the program requirements, then it moves on to the next steps. Town staff will perform a site visit and they'll verify the safety concerns of the applicant. Town staff will then secure 3 bids for the work consistent with our procurement requirements. The town awards a contract and executes a right of entry. One step that's missing, we'll continue to coordinate with the property owner for the timing and execution of the work, but we'll monitor the work and pay the invoices once the work is complete.
Do you currently have capacity and staff to do all that?
Yes, sir. Now, if this goes beyond a couple of year program or the program grows, we may need to look at that in the future. But based on the 200,000 per year, yes, sir. I believe right now we can handle it with existing staff. So if approved, we'll also execute a communication strategy. We provided this presentation and support material to our communication director, but we would execute press release, social media posts, have English and Spanish translation for the collateral material and application. We'll post this to the town's website. We've talked to the PSD, and I want to thank Jamie Lopku, who's moved on to Clearwater, but she did a lot of legwork in coordinating with our partnership organizations, but PSD's given us some indication that they would help us send out some information with their newsletter and bills. And then Deepwell also as a bigger partner on the next program, but again, a good partner to help with execution of communication for this program. So next steps, if there's a positive recommendation out of the F&A committee today, I believe you'll have a brief later to council, and then we will bring this resolution forward to council on the May 3rd date unless otherwise advised. But those are the next steps. And then we'll also develop, execute the memorandum of understanding and execute the communication strategy once council, if they're so inclined, approve the program. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or others on this part of it. And
Okay, thank you. Committee, comments or questions for Sean? Bill?
Thank you, Sean. Let me create a potential situation. Landowner or building owner applies to this program. The structure is in a rental situation with, say, a family of 3 or 4. And upon analysis of the structure, it's determined to be unsafe in terms of town code and, frankly, not worth investing in, but rather removal. What happens in that chain? What could happen in that chain of events? Obviously, the family could be dislodged. And does this program offer some kind of a parachute for that?
So I'll answer, I guess, the 2 parts of that question. You know, first, it's a voluntary program. And so an owner would have to be a volunteer applicant. I would hope that an owner would know the condition of their property and the extent of which this program could provide some relief. If our building official makes a determination that there's unsafe conditions as a result of this, there are options for mitigation. I don't know. I don't think that would be an emergent issue, but we certainly could talk about that. We are not proactively looking for code violations, but if we come across them, then we need to take appropriate action to make sure that the occupants are living in a safe environment. And so there are options through the building code and the Construction Board of Appeals and Adjustments to provide some mitigation strategies to help out with that situation. So they're not through this program necessarily, unless the repairs could be done for $15,000 or somewhere very close to that number. But there are other provisions in the code that allow us to identify mitigation options through the other mechanism. And I think we had referenced the section of the building code and provided that in your packet as well. So very good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a couple things. Thank you, Sean. I'm gonna piggyback a little bit on Councilman Hawkins' question. It talks about, if there's a violation, and it gets to that point of determination for removal of a structure, that there was appeal process, and there would be a board that would hear that. Which board is that?
It's that Construction Board of Appeals and Adjustments. They hear all appeals related to determination of unsafe structures, and we've
Okay.
had that occur a few times.
Okay. I think what you've put together here is great, Sean. If you could go back to the communication strategy, I've got a few comments on that. I'm gonna start with the PSDs including information in the newsletter and their bills. And I guess I've had this argument with PSD over the years when it came to sewer connections, which we'll talk about next. But if you're 60% of the AMI, the bill is probably the last thing that you want to see and are going to open. So to me, this communication strategy needs to include more of a on-the-ground effort, so to speak. How we can continue to work on having neighborhood ambassadors. I think that will help us along the way. One thought that I had, I know that a lot of construction folks are either asked by homeowners or other civic organizations to help out with repairs pro bono. And in this particular case, you will now provide some funding to assist with that. So I don't know if it's an effort to communicate with those that we have relationships with that are coming for permits all the time, and just saying, hey, we've got this program. Just gives them somewhat of an incentive to help out. And I know that they're probably in contact with folks that just can't afford to get things done nowadays, particularly with the cost of materials and labor and just getting the job done on Hilton Head. It's very difficult. So I think they can be a resource for us. The fact that it's in English and Spanish, I think is great. I think we've talked about how we better engage with the Latino population. And I'll go back to Holy Family Church. I keep hearing more and more that they are definitely connected. So that may be an option as well, as far as the communication strategy is concerned. Those are my comments.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Fine.
Thank you for the report, Sean. I am proud that the town is considering this program. This is certainly an appropriate use of the American Rescue Funds, and it will be very meaningful to those who are most in need here. So I think it's an outstanding program. I have two nits to pick with you.
Okay.
The first one is, there's nothing in the plan about reporting to town council. I think there should be something in there, maybe semi-annually, but there definitely should be a report to council on what's going on in the program from time to time. And then secondly, under the program policy statement, the idea was to help to increase the quality of life. Picking at a nit, I would say improve the quality of life rather than increase the quality of life. Beyond that, I think this is an outstanding program, and I'm prepared to support it. Thank you, Tom.
Tom, good.
Bill?
Yeah, Sean, just a quick, I'm trying to think of how to create a multiplier opportunity here. If someone has a home that's really in need of repair, and unfortunately, the price tag to make it habitable is, say, $22,000. So there's a shortfall of $7,000. If some kind of bridge could be developed between this program and other charitable activity groups in the community, like the foundation, and they were able to bring $7,000 in it, could that still work in terms of the program? We have a $22,000 problem, but you can only take care of 15, but it really needs 7 more to make it how to, so people can live there.
Yes, sir, that's a great point. Yeah, there's nothing that would preclude someone from leveraging this program with charitable organizations, contractors that would be willing
Oh, good.
to do
Okay.
some of the work. We just need to make sure that the money provided or authorized through this town program, the work is being done, and that value is a one-for-one. But we had talked about this. If someone has a $20,000 repair, this would at least be a 75% grant award for the cost of those repairs for someone that qualifies. But there are other opportunities or options out in the community that may provide that gap. So, recommending approval of this program does not preclude us from having those discussions and try to leverage this program. It's not built in anywhere in our ordinance or MOU, but we certainly can have those conversations and look at ways to leverage this further to provide better benefit to applicants in the
Thank you.
community.
Very good.
Sean, does the issue of clear title have any impact on applicants that may be occupying heirs property?
Well, that's why we have the affidavit of ownership requirement as part of the required documentation. So as long as we have that, we will avoid, I think, that issue. Yes,
Good.
sir.
And this is a supplement to Deep Well. And you can work in tandem with Deep Well, can you not?
Well, this program is executed by the town. The next program for sewer connections is in tandem with Deep Well, where we will have them do initial vetting. Yes, sir.
In the background, it says the program, Deep Wells program, the livable housing program to assist residents with various home repairs is available to owner-occupied units only. However, Deep Well will work with a landlord for projects related to rental units. So Deep Well
Yes.
has some flexibility.
Yes, and they have a similar program, but does not provide the same target or benefit that this one does. So yes, sir, we'll continue to work with Deep Well in coordination.
Can a property owner or renter use both in tandem?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Good. Any questions or comments pertaining to the home safety and repair program from the public? Okay, the committee is being asked to recommend to town council via a resolution authorizing the program for implementation. Do we have a recommendation?
Move same.
Second?
Any additional questions or discussion among the committee? Krista, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
Yes.
And Mr. Lennox?
Yes,
Motion carries unanimously.
thank you. Sean, are you on the sewer connection program?
Yes, sir, if you want to introduce it, I'm happy to.
Okay, agenda item 7C. Consideration of a resolution authorizing the implementation of a sewer connection program, including the execution of a memo of understanding with Deep Well Low Country Council of Governments, and the Hilton Head PSD.
And once again, I'm back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. This is another program that council authorized through the program funds for the ARPA distribution. This was in category 3, invest in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, and reminding the community and committee that $200,000 was authorized for programming for lateral sewer connection, with $100,000 in fiscal '22 and another $100,000 in fiscal '23. And so I'll move through the presentation, which outlines the program similar to the last one, and then take questions from the committee and the community. We'll go through the presentation here, a recommendation, again, a policy statement, give you a summary of the program, qualifications for the program, limitations, the prioritization for applicants, the process for the program, the income certification, similar to what we talked about the last program, forms and documentation, communication, and Alex, I already know a couple of your questions on that one. I've got notes, so we'll augment this one as well going forward in the next steps. So again, an awful lot of words here, but we're asking you to forward a recommendation to council to adopt a resolution to execute the program. This one, we have a couple other partners as part of that arrangement with Deepwell, who has a similar program where we'd ask the applicants to be vetted through that program, and then if we need to provide supplemental funding or full funding if they don't qualify through Deepwell, we would go that route. With Low Country Council of Governments for the income certification component, and then with Hilton Head Public Service District to implement and coordinate the actual construction activities to connect the homes or households to the sewer. Again, have a program policy statement, and I think hopefully the wording's okay on this one. We don't. We've had a goal to connect 100% of households to sewer. This program is set out to assist low and moderate income households earning up to 100% of the AMI who do not qualify for Project Safe or only qualify for partial funding through their program, and connect them to the public sanitary sewer system. Program summary, as I mentioned, homeowners and households earning up to 100% of AMI. The vetting for Project Safe will be done through Deepwell as an initial step. Income certification through LOCOG, similar to the Home Safe and Repair. The connection requirements, the cost estimates, connection installations all handled through coordination with the Public Service District. And then the cost of installation is paid through the town, and we'll get into also capacity fee eligibility. Qualifications, applicants must occupy the home subject to connection, and then again have an annual income that does not exceed the 100% AMI, area median income for Beaufort County, and we did include a table with that information in the packet. Applicants may also rent the home they occupy and participate in this program. Again, the primary goal is to connect the units. We do have a preference for folks that own and occupy their structures, but the goal is to get folks off septic and get them connected to the sanitary sewer. Limitations. So if you qualify for Project Safe full grant funding, then there's no need to go use our program, right? So we would supplement or provide funding where they didn't meet Project Safe eligibility. You can only participate in the program once. And then households relocating their homes, and we've seen this on occasion here, especially in the last couple of years. You have to relocate to the new site, and so trying to minimize the cost of connections. And so if you had a really deep lot, the the cost would only increase by locating it as far back. So some reasonableness on the location of the relocated structure to minimize connection costs. And then it'll only cover connection costs, but we also include the ability to pay the capacity fee for the connection. That was a point of discussion when we talked with our partners is the connection fee is great, but the capacity fee sometimes is a barrier. So both are covered and eligible through this program. I mentioned a prioritization of applicants. So these are really from 1 to 5 rather than a bulleted list, but we give preference or priority to households who own the property and who qualify for partial grants from Project Safe. And so you own and then you need supplemental funding to execute the connection. Households that do not exceed 100% AMI who own the property and don't qualify for Project Safe. Project Safe has a limitation of 90% AMI, and so there's a little bit of space for that supplemental. Properties located in Hilton Head PSD Service District, that's the primary area with the sewer master plan where we're targeting these connections. Households renting, leasing a home for their manufactured home on a property they don't own. So there is an opportunity to connect properties that are being used in a rental fashion, but they're not one of the top priorities. And then also renting and leasing space, property they don't own within the municipal boundaries. So trying to develop a little bit hierarchy, how we evaluate and recommend awards. And we'll have to see how many applications, come in with the different waves. But this is the recommended prioritization for applicants. As I did before, I'll kind of walk you through the process. So applications are submitted to Deep Well for Project Safe. If they are funded at 100%, then they don't move on to the town program. If they're not eligible or are eligible for partial funding, that would move on into the town process. We would have an income certification done through Low Country Council of Governments. And if it meets both Deep Well and the income requirements, then the application would be processed through the town. We'll look at the application and the requirements. We'll work with PSD to get an estimate of cost. And then based on that, be ready to issue an approval for the PSD to execute the work and connect the units. And then upon completion of the work and certification that it's done in compliance with their connection requirements, they would invoice the town and we would pay for the connection and capacity fee as needed. Again, forms and documentations in your packet. I think we had many attachments. But just so you know, we've drafted the application itself for the program. We have the affidavit of ownership and hold harmless allow us to go on the property. We need a copy of the recorded title of registration in case of manufactured home. We need the income certification from LOCOG, verification from Deep Well on their program, their notification letter, or that the applicant doesn't meet the requirements. And then all that together would allow us to execute and move forward with the execution of the program. Communication strategy. We have postcards here for the PSD, Alex, not in the bill, so maybe they're more receptive to a postcard than getting the bill. But a similar communication strategy, press release, social media, English and Spanish translation, post to the website. Again, work with the partners to help with just spreading the word. We certainly have some other recommendations based on the last agenda item on ways to enhance and to continue outreach with neighborhood ambassadors, faith-based organizations, and others to help spread the word. PSD will include it on their Connect Now page of their website, and then Deep Well also mentioned that they would include the information on their website as well. Next steps, again, similar to the last item, with an affirmative action recommendation from the committee to council to adopt the resolution to execute the program. I think there'll be a brief later today, and then it could come forward as early as May 3rd for reading of the resolution. And again, if approved, we could execute the MOA with those partners, and then move forward with execution of the communication strategy and make the funding available and start accepting applications. That completes that presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or the community has as well.
Okay.
I got a couple things. Thank you. First, I guess the PSD response to this, Sean asked for the potential of covering water connection also. Is there a reason that we declined on that? I'm just curious, not saying I'm supporting it, I'm just wondering how that dialogue went.
Yeah, so there are programs for water connection. I know that the PSD did recommend the potential to expand the program. We have $100,000 per fiscal year for this. The goal of the accelerated master plan for sewer was to make sewer available for all that wanted it, and then now get those connections in place. We could look at, if council so desired in the future, to expand the program. But with $100,000 and paying for connection and capacity fees, I'd like to see the benefit and how many we can connect into the sewer program. And if council so declines in the future or advises us now to expand it, we could pursue that. But at this point, looking at, and that was what was outlined through your authorization of the ARPA money.
Right.
Was for the lateral sewer connections.
And the relocation has the same limitation. If one was relocating and now had to get not only a new sewer tap, but a water tap also, they would not be able to use it for water at that point, right?
The way it's currently drafted, no, sir, not water, just sewer.
Okay, I just think we keep an eye on that one,
Yeah.
particularly with the threat of properties changing hands and moving from one particular use to another. And when folks relocate, that water tap is a huge expense also that, fits within the same criteria of AMI that we're speaking of. And if it helps with the conversation with PSD, if they can get those bits of information out of the bill, then maybe we'll consider it even more, right? The communication strategy mentioned that we're going to send postcards to the unconnected folks list, right? And that, again, I think we could probably expand on that. If PSD already has the data as to who's not connected, I'm not afraid to say maybe we could just knock on the door and say, how can we help, right? Not that we want to break any privacy rules, but at the same time, I think a conversation is going to be a lot more effective than a postcard coming in the mail. And the last one, and I'm going to lean on Councilman Stanford to help me articulate this legally. The memorandum of understanding with PSD, it is saying that PSD will prepare the estimate for the work, okay? And PSD, I'm sure, has a preferred list of contractors, okay? But in many cases, those folks are used to spending government money at whatever level they want to spend it at, right? And I know for a fact that there are contractors that are licensed that can do the same work at a lesser price, okay? So how do we protect the fiduciary responsibility of this amount of money that we're providing so that we get the best price is what I'm trying to get at, okay? I know that the SAFE program has a lot of money left, and yeah, there's some criteria issues there as to why they can't spend the money, but the other one is that price issue, okay? And I just want to make sure we're strong in that area.
Do you want a response from me on that?
Sure, absolutely.
First of all, I'm not a lawyer anymore, but I would say that the way you deal with that is to require bids. In the home repair program, we have a requirement of 3 bids, and if people know that there's a bidding process, we should be able to draw that down.
Okay.
And another would just be a rule of reason. If someone wants to charge $35,000 for a sewer tap, sorry, you don't get the job. It doesn't automatically go to the people that submit the bids.
Thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair, for me.
Any other comment? Bill?
Yeah. Sean, in the event that we have a qualified candidate and they hook up, and they're leaving behind a compromised or failed septic arrangement in their yard, which is a nuisance. Does this program help remedy that also? And if not,
yeah.
what, because that could be a stumbling block. Someone will say, I'd like to do it, but I've got literally a mess here.
Yeah, so the way it's written right now, it's not an itemized eligible, or it's not included in the eligible expense for connection. That's something we can speak to the PSD on to see if it's something that could be part of the program expense if needed. You know, the previous program, there were some other options for that very provision. It just wasn't one of the three that we recommended in that program. So we can look if that becomes a significant issue, come back and modify the program to allow either the home safe and repair to include remediation of old or outdated septic tanks, or include it as part, an eligible expense in this program.
Because it's been recorded in, recent years, a number of articles about what these yards look like after a wet season, and it's not too pretty.
I got to follow up on that.
Okay.
Mr. Lennox. Sean, is there some DHEC requirement for old septic systems? Just curious, because I'm piggybacking on what he's saying.
Right.
Let's just say that the septic system is pumped out. I mean, you still got a big tank in the ground that's empty. I'm just curious if they require anything to be done there. I for one know that back in the day, they used to always tell us, don't drive over the septic tank. So over time, if it's not being used, it starts to deteriorate. It almost becomes a sinkhole in one's yard, right? So I'd like to learn a little bit more about that.
If I may piggyback on that, it's fairly analogous to selling a gas station or a convenience store.
Right.
Got to get rid of that stuff.
Yeah, we'll get you information on that, if the DEC has some requirements when you abandon a septic tank, the method that needs to be employed if there are any, and share that with you. I can also share that when this comes forward to council, if that would be helpful as well. Include it in your packet.
I have a question. It's my understanding that there have been some difficulties with Project SAFE in that it hasn't quite fit the bill. What are the issues that have been presented in Project SAFE in terms that would limit someone from wanting to apply?
Well, when we talked with them, two main areas of concern were there's a lot of these that are rental units, and the owners don't qualify, and so they don't meet the eligibility requirements. And there's another point I had, and it just jumped out of my head.
It's not income qualification.
No, it's the amount of rental, homes that need to be connected that are rental homes. And I'm sorry, I'll think of the second point I was going to make there, but.
Right. I understand. I support this program as well. Again, it's a good use of the ARPA funds, and so I'm pleased with the idea.
Sean, clarify one more time. This is or is not an island-wide program?
It's targeted in the area for the Hilton Head PSD. Our MOU right now is only with the Hilton Head Public Service District. And so that would be the area right now that we're targeting. The basic language in the resolution confines it to that service district.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the public regarding this issue? If not, the committee is being asked to forward a recommendation to Town Council to adopt a resolution authorizing the program for implementation, which includes execution of the MOU with Deepwell, LOCOG, and Hilton Head PSD.
So move same.
Second?
Thank you. Any additional discussion or questions from the committee?
Just one more thing, Mr. Lenz. This copies the home repair. I know Councilman Stafford asked for reporting often on the program. I think that's important also, so we know.
Yes, sir. Those are both great points. And just like the Community Foundation provides you regular reporting based on their grant awards, I would anticipate the same thing. We'll make sure that's included in our reporting to you. Yes, sir.
Good. Any other comments from the committee? If there are none, Krista, please call the roll.
Certainly. Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Thank you. Agenda item 7D, consideration of a proposed ordinance 2022-09, amending section 4-5-20 of the municipal code of the town of Hilton Head Island, extending the expiration date of the real estate transfer fee from 31 December 2024 to 31 December 2044. Mr. Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, our presentation is being called up right here. Thank you very much. Yes, we have a proposal to extend the real estate transfer fee. We'll give a quick history. We'll talk a little bit about the intent and the purpose of the fee. We'll talk about past uses. We'll talk about possible future uses, and we'll talk about where do we go from here. So what has it been used for? Primarily open spaces, the US 278 corridor. You'll see the signs around. This property has been preserved by the town, and our real estate transfer fee has been a significant funding source for those. Very, very visible. It was adopted back in 1990 by the town council. The intent, I think I would focus right here. The majority of land set aside under this chapter shall be kept in perpetuity as close as possible in its natural state. So we're buying land to keep it in its natural state, and that has certainly helped the island. There's other purposes allowed, and so beyond the in perpetuity as wildlife preserves or needed by the public for future active and passive recreation. So there's a couple of different purposes that are allowed in this real estate transfer fee. Most of it has been for open space. And so we continue that language. The cost of it is 1/4%. So a $500,000 home, the fee is $1,250, which is paid by the purchaser. And so people who would buy property on the island would pay this real estate transfer fee. It was set for 24 years, and so it's set to end in 2024. And so still a couple of years out. How much is this collected? And so the town has collected over $87 million in the years since 1990. We keep it in a separate fund. You can see it in our annual report. We have a real estate transfer fee fund, and it captures the collections and also captures the spending. Last year, you can see over the years, it's been up and down depending on the real estate market, and 2021, a very successful real estate year. And so the uses of it, of the collections, the town has used $76 million. has purchased over 1,300 acres all over the island in a number of different capacities. And so you've got land all over the island that this has enabled the town to purchase. Here are collections. It's just another one 6 months into this year. If you ask the question, how are we doing so far this year? Not quite last year's pace, but we're almost last year's pace. In addition to the real estate transfer fee, the town has also used general funds, voter referenda, grants and donations, and CIP revenues to supplement. And so it's not just a good idea for the real estate transfer fee, but we've also used these other revenues in order to do more because it's a good idea. So why would we need more funds? We'd like to continue to add more open spaces and improve the 278 corridor. Resiliency is a part of our strategic plan, and so land acquisition, and that's what this would be for, helps in our risk mitigation, and so this helps in our resiliency to help protect the island. And as we do parks work, stormwater work, roads work, the real estate transfer fee can work hand in hand with those activities to make sure that we have some open spaces and the projects look as good as they can for the island. A number of different benefits, but I would focus your attention on just the first two: preserve the open spaces, public access to views in our waterways. And so all of these are good reasons for it. 1 and 2 are the ones that we spent the most money. Just a couple of examples: Veterans Memorial at Shelter Cove Park. Everybody, visitors and residents, can enjoy that. William Hilton Parkway, we drive every day. You can see all the green up and down 278, much of which was a result of the real estate transfer fee. Honeyhorn Tract, Fish Hall Creek Park, again, residents and visitors are able to enjoy. Shelter Cove Community Park, preserving these views, preserving open space. Chaplin Waterfront, you drive and it keeps open, natural. It sends a good message for the island. Compass Rose is another example. Yacht Cove Tract, we're preserving views and also protecting from flooding. And so we use those dual purposes to improve the island. And so staff recommends, in order to continue this good work of preserving open spaces, improve our resiliency, is to go ahead and recommend to extend this real estate transfer fee now so we can go ahead and make plans to be as strategic as possible and long-term thinking as possible to know that the funds will be available to make these future investments on behalf of the island. Specifically, what is in the recommendation: another 20 years, maintain this at the existing rate. There has been some talk about possibly expanding the allowed uses, but our proposal is to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible, keep the allowed uses just the way that it's written. And so we would ask Town Council to consider acting now so that the planning process can continue for the future, and we start talking about planning for our future. So we need plans to be able to execute the purchases on behalf of the island. Ask the question, has anyone else weighed in on this? We've had a number of meetings with our Realtors Association, and we appreciate their interest. We appreciate the detail that they went through. And as a result of our discussions, the Realtors has written a letter of support for this extension. And so I would open the floor to any comments or questions.
Okay, committee, comments or questions for John regarding the proposed ordinance extending the real estate transfer fee through the end of 2044?
Historically, this has been a fantastic program. Really has inured to the benefit of the town. I think expression of thanks for the cooperation of the realtors to continue this should be made, and I certainly support continuing it just the way it is.
Okay, thank you.
Alex?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, John. This expires in 2024, and we're looking to take action here now. What happens between now and 2024, as far as process is concerned?
Nothing other than it allows the town manager and staff to make future plans and start targeting strategic investments. And so to know that, okay, do we have a year and a half worth of funds, or do we have 20 years of funds? And that helps to color our plans.
So the execution date will start at
Immediately.
2020? Or
What it does is it changes the ordinance, and the ordinance has an expiration date. And so the updated ordinance would just have a new expiration date. And so because
That's what I was looking for. Thank you. Okay. All right. I agree with us not touching this, okay, because of what we've learned from the past, and I'm going to be supporting it, and also I'm really anxious as we develop our land acquisition program, because this fund is still important, but one could argue how important it is now versus when we first started, which was a totally different environment, right? Okay, so I think we need to move forward so we know how much money we're looking at. But the land acquisition program, I think, is a totally different conversation, because we may need more than this funding to acquire what we need to make this a better situation, okay? And the other thing that I asked John is, as we move forward with any of your presentations, you know, we see the real estate transfer fee and how much money it brings, okay? And of course, we saw that huge incline in 2021. But how much of that is the 4% taxer and the 6% taxer? I think is important to us, all right? Because it's just an element that we keep guessing at. And I'm not sure how difficult that is to pull out, but just moving forward, when we talk about revenues that are generated like this one, understanding that I think is important to us along the way. So those are my questions and comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Glenn?
Thank you, John. I think it's important that we extend this ordinance. I approve of the concept of the only change in the ordinance is its expiration date, because we know that it works as is, and we don't want to create more problems. Looking at the ordinance as it exists now, under the section dealing with purpose, it talks about acquiring property for public use, open space, and so forth. And then it goes forward to say, or to redefine that property in accordance with the town's current comprehensive plan and dispose of it as soon as possible. Has that ever been used in the history of this town?
I think it has, but very, very limited cases. And so it's mostly been used to purchase open spaces, but
Sure.
I think there's been a few targeted areas where there's,
I think that that is a tool that we might consider using moving forward to implement the comprehensive plan. Whether, for example, that could be used for a site for workforce housing or something like that. But I think it's important for us to know that under the ordinance as it exists now and as it will exist into the future, there is that other opportunity to redefine a property and to dispose of it, sell it back to the public.
yeah, and it puts it back on the tax roll,
Right.
yes.
I support this, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Glenn. I think Glenn brings up a very good point, and that is, I think we need to focus on the language that's in the proposed ordinance as to the uses of these ATAX funds or transfer fees. In the memo from Josh, there is a summary of uses in two different areas. But as it pertains to what the language is in the ordinance, and under the first whereas, that's what we need to focus on. Any comments or questions from the public on this issue? If there are none,
I got one, just one quick comment. The ATAX, you mentioned the ATAX, and it definitely needs to be, we all know it needs to be fixed. The language needs to be fixed and the law needs to be abided by, and John Troyer and the accounting and everything that you're doing needs to be fixed on that item. So that's all I want to say, and then I'm going to make another statement in a minute on agenda item number G.
we are being asked to forward a recommendation to Town Council extending the maturity date of the real estate transfer fee from 31 December 2024 to 31 December 2044. Is there a motion?
Move we proceed with a recommendation to town council.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Just one more thing, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going back to the point that you all made as far as the whereas, the first whereas. It says acquire, develop land or development rights. So the purchasing of development rights is also an option under this code, right? Okay.
That is the law right there.
Yep. Sure. Absolutely.
Krista, please call the roll.
Certainly, Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Thank you. Agenda item 7. E, consideration of a resolution authorizing the town manager to enter into an MOU with the South Island Dredging Association to provide funding assistance for the dredging of Harbor Town Yacht Basin. John Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, what you have in front of you is a proposal to continue the island's relationship with the South Island Dredging Association and continue its efforts in order to provide a safe passageway on the south end of the island.
And John, what have we done in the past?
Back in 2019, and even before 2019, Town Council had set aside funds to execute this relationship. And the town is just paying a portion of it and not all of it. And so in 2019, the town had a similar agreement. It was approved. And since then, the town has set aside funds in the budget ordinance in order for, with the expectation of a future agreement.
And is funding like this funding in advance, or is it reimbursable?
It's reimbursable, and so what the South Island Dredging Association, they do the work, they document the work, they document the spending. Their spending is up above $1 million, and so it's we are funding just a portion of that, and it's only on a reimbursement basis.
And what is the estimated total project cost?
It's my understanding that it's about $1.5 million.
$592. Okay. Questions?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. This is a harbor that's available to the public. It's an iconic feature of the island. And I believe it inures to the benefit of the entire island in many direct and indirect ways. So I think this is a wise investment.
Alex? Glenn?
Given the little golf tournament that occurred here last week and the tens of thousands of people who came and enjoy it, enjoyed that as part of our major industry of tourism. Clearly, this is an appropriate use for these funds, and I will support it.
John, I think clarification on the agreement on page 4 of 5. At the bottom of section 14.1, the association shall choose either option 1A or 1B. I think those choices should be single I lowercase and double I lowercase. Take a look at that, if you will.
Yes, sir.
Any public comment or questions on the issue of the funding assistance for the South Island Dredging Association? Please come forward.
And Curtis Coltrane will be, and Josh Gruber being lawyers, will be able to find this out very quickly and very easily, which I'm sure they will. Sea Pines is a private community, and it's illegal to use public tax funds for private purposes that does not benefit the public good, reason, use, and benefit. This was a Supreme Court case that was won by Ned Sloan with his lawyer Jim Carpenter, and the public does not have access to Sea Pines. It's a private community. That's not what public funds are for. The HOA, the POA, the private community needs to fund that project. Even though Harbortown is important to the whole community, the whole island, the fact is you can't use public funds. If you use public funds, I'm going to file a lawsuit against you. And I'm going to win that lawsuit because the lawsuit's already been won. And the lawsuit was won on a very simple case by Ned Sloan, who has now since passed away. He filed over 100 lawsuits in South Carolina. He was a real hero. He was a real hero of mine. And I was lucky to be invited by he and his lawyer and his private funded committee to talk about what he has done. But his 100th lawsuit that he won was exactly for that reason. And it was a very simple lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court. And it was about a local community in Greenville, the Greenville Town Council funding the repair of a bridge in a gated community. Alex, follow me on this one. In a gated community, a private community that the public does not have access to, like Sea Pines. And he won that case. The Supreme Court ruled, you're correct, it's illegal to use tax monies for a private gated community, or private funding that's not for the public good. So if you use any tax money, I'm going to sue the town and both those fine, outstanding young gentlemen over there who have already committed fraud and illegal acts, and Gruber's already been committed with 3 violations, and Coltrane's already been caught doing a fraudulent contract. So I just wanted to let you know that that's coming. So you go right ahead and use that public money, and I look forward to that lawsuit. And that's a simple lawsuit for me, very inexpensive lawsuit.
Any other comments or questions from the public? If there are none, Krista, please call the roll.
Certainly, Mr. Brown.
Oh,
I need to have a motion first.
the motion is to consider authorizing the town manager to enter into an MOU with the South Island Dredging Association to provide funding assistance for the dredging of Harbortown Yacht Basin. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any additional comments or questions from the committee? If there are none, Krista, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Agenda item 7F, consideration of a proposed ordinance 2022-10, amending sections 10-9-10 and 10-9-30 of the municipal code regarding the billing for ambulance services. Mr. Troyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the town has a third-party administrator to help us with ambulance billing, and so we lean on them for compliance with billing codes and best practices, and we meet with them on a regular basis about billing issues, but then we also meet with them on an annual basis just about how can we be the most effective that we can through this program. And so as a result of our last annual meeting, the third-party billing administrator has recommended that we, one, follow the federal guidelines, and that two, that we would consider an update for our ambulance fees. And so what we're trying to accomplish is an appropriate balance, a fair balance, is how much revenue should the town get from providing ambulance services, and how much should those people who use those ambulance services, and how much should the property taxpayers pay. And so we try to strike that just right balance. And so by following the industry best practices, I think will help us position us right where we need to be. And so that would also bring in a little bit of town revenues, and as finance director, that helps our budget as well. So one of the things that recommendations that's coming out of this also is that instead of needing town council every time that there's an update of the federal rates, is just to tie our rates to the federal rates, and so that as they're updated once a year by CMS, that we don't have to struggle or wrestle with the details of that, is that we just say that we're going to tie our rates to CMS's rates, and that would help continue to position the town in the fairest balance that we can about paying for ambulance services. And so just a couple of years ago, the town updated its ambulance fleet, and this helps us to continue to look forward to when we need to update our ambulance fleet in the future. And so here's the details of the recommendation. Our expectation is that it would bring in another $125,000, about 7%. We have not changed our rates since 2017. So we updated the rates after Matthew and haven't since. And so our third-party administrator suggests that the most fair billing practice would be to update our rates and tie it to the federal rates. And so we would make that recommendation.
And John, what has your collection experience been? What percentage?
We've been between 80 and 82%. And so when our third-party biller looks at our book of work and looks at our collection activity, they're continue to be impressed with our collection percentages. Many times they're in the 70s and even 65 for similar-sized towns. And so we can be thankful that, one, it helps to get the bills out as fast as possible. That helps with collections, and just our local jurisdiction has good experience.
Comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair, this makes good common sense, and I move for approval.
Having recently taken a ride in one of our ambulances, I totally support this.
Any comment from the public? Is there a motion to forward a recommendation to town council authorizing their consideration of an increase in ambulance fees?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Krista, please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Support.
Mr. Harkins?
Yes.
Mr. Stanford?
Yes.
Mr. Lennox?
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Thank you. And certainly, last but not least, John Troyer will update us on town finances, specifically the results of the conference call you had yesterday with the rating agency Moody's.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a little bit different, and we'll provide similar information as our normal financial update, but Mr. Chair wanted us to kind of focus on just our conversations with Moody's. Moody's is one of our bond raters. We have a AAA rating with them, and so we certainly pay attention to everything that they say and certainly be responsive. And so this past week, they said, well, it's time for an update. We need to take a look at your finances and see how you're doing. And just to remind everybody, 2 years ago when COVID started, Moody's put all coastal communities across the country on credit watch just because their expectation was with the shutdown, coastal communities that are dependent on tourism are going to be in trouble. And that was their expectation. And so yesterday we had a very positive conversation detailing our 2020 results, 2021, and year-to-date 2022 through March. And very, very positive. They were surprised at how well we're doing. And so it's always comforting to know that we had a good conversation and we work really hard to keep those relationships with the bond raters as strong as possible. And so that's my report, and I would certainly welcome any questions.
And the trend through the end of March?
Very, very strong. And and normally, words that you get from the bond rating agencies, one of the phrases that we got was they didn't lack anything. And so instead of giving us good marks, they say that we didn't have any bad marks. And we heard that. And we did hear when we talked about some of the details, our primary analyst, Mr. Mamo, he did say, wow. And so for him to say that was really unusual because it's not their personality.
Excellent report.
Sure is.
Was there any indication of what our revised rating will be?
We have a AAA for our GO. We have a step down for our special obligations. And so what we like is our expectation is continue that AAA and just keep as strong a relationship with Moody's as we can. And so that's the outcome that we wanted is for them to go away saying that they're very comfortable with our operations, comfortable with our economy, and comfortable with how town council makes their budgetary decisions.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, staff. Heck of a job. A very robust schedule and agenda today. If there is no other business to come before the committee, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. We stand adjourned.